Hey guys, welcome back. So in my last video, we talked about what is POTS and kind of my story with it. And in that video, I briefly mentioned cyclic vomiting syndrome, which is the other illness that Sebastian helps me with. So I thought I would also go over in this video how he helps me and what cyclic vomiting syndrome is and kind of my story with it, since it is a rare disease and it's really hard to find any information on it. So I think it's time that we talk about it. So in January of 2022, I was hospitalized after not holding down any food or water or anything for 24 hours. I thought this was a Crohn's disease flare because in the past I have had Crohn's disease, which I would throw up and just have really bad flares that would land me in the hospital. So it wasn't anything completely uncommon other than usually I'm able to hold food and liquids down. So I went to the ER. I was there for 7 hours before they decided to admit me. I was admitted for 4 days, and they were pumping me full of fluids and stomach medicines and antacids and all these other things to try to help me hold down food and liquid. And it just wasn't working until finally it worked, but it was really just that episode was over. From January, it continued to happen, and I saw my GI here in Atlanta, and he said, Kaitlyn, this isn't Crohn's disease. Your Crohn's, like, you haven't had an ulcer in a while, and I honestly think you're in remission, and I don't know what this is. I'm going to send you to either Vanderbilt or Mayo Clinic. I underwent a lot of testing here in Atlanta to get into either of those. I had to do more CT scans, another colonoscopy, another this, another that, more labs. It was literally insane. And originally got declined from Mayo because they said, well, if it's Crohn's disease, like you already have a GI, you know what you're doing, that's not something that we're going to take. So we changed the wording and said that I needed to go to Mayo for vomiting episodes with unknown cause, and somehow they let that in. So I went to Mayo in June in Jacksonville and underwent a gastric emptying study, a fluoroscopy, another colonoscopy and endoscopy, some x-rays, some lab work, some celiac testing, and I think some other stuff. I don't know. It was a whole week of just like scheduled testing before I had my consult with the GI there. So at the end of that week, I had a consult with GI, and she looked at me and said, I think you had Crohn's disease. I think your Crohn's disease is in remission. Actually, I'm confirming your Crohn's disease is in remission after the colonoscopy, endoscopy, and lab work, which was great news. But it was also kind of disheartening because I had thought it was Crohn's disease this whole time, and that meant something else was wrong. That means I'm getting diagnosed with some other random disease that nobody's heard of, I've never heard of, and I'm going to have to learn to deal with. So we kept talking, and she said, it's uncommon to throw up as much as you have with your flares. Like every 3 months you were getting these vomiting episodes, you would change Crohn's meds, it would go away, and in 3 months it was back. And so she said, that sounds to me a lot like cyclic vomiting syndrome, where you're having these episodes every 3 months, and now they're getting worse because they've been untreated. And with my history of migraines as a kid, she said it kind of makes sense. Sometimes when you get migraines at a young age, it can turn into cyclic vomiting in the future. So from there, we've been trying different medications, and they have not worked. I was put on a medication back in December that had a red box warning with my POTS medication and ended up stopping my heart, which was scary, and has definitely made me more aware of the medications I take and looking at the drug interactions. That being said, this is a rare disease. There is no actual treatment. All I can do is try to treat the symptoms and try to prevent episodes. But with POTS, it makes it tricky because any prophylactic medication interacts with the POTS medications on top of drug allergies that I have. And so it's this constant battle of POTS and cyclic vomiting are making each other worse. And how do we treat both at the same time without, stopping my heart? So that being said, I've looked at what cyclic vomiting is defined as. So that we have like the medical terminology here just to help explain a little better. So it says cyclic vomiting syndrome is a disorder that causes sudden repeated attacks called episodes of severe nausea and vomiting. Episodes last a few hours to several days. Episodes alternate with longer periods of no symptoms. There's no technically known triggers. It can be emotional stress, anxiety, panic attacks, infection, colds, flu, chronic sinusitis, other things, excitement before events like birthdays, holidays, vacations, school outings, especially in children. So basically, your generic, what's the trigger for autoimmune diseases? Stress. That's all they know. But it's not just stress, it's just your body has these random episodes and it sucks. And for me, they are every other week for at least 24 hours up to 72 hours. So that being said, when I got Sebastian, it was originally 4 pots. However, through having him, I've also realized that he does detect my cyclic vomiting episodes. So for me, they start randomly. Like I could be out at the mall with friends, and all of a sudden I'm nauseous and throwing up, and my day's done. And so he knows about 10 minutes before I do that I'm gonna get nauseous and throw up, and it gives me time to, find a bathroom, find somewhere that's not in the middle of public, or go home or anything like that, which is super nice for someone like me who likes to go out and hang out with people. It's been nice to have him alert and let me know. And usually I have 30 minutes between vomiting episodes on really bad days. So even if it's just I find a public bathroom, it normally gives me enough time I can go home before things get really bad. That being said, he also does a forward momentum pull because on those days it's really hard for me to be able to walk. He can guide me to the couch, and again with the pots, he can detect when I'm going to faint and go get help. So overall, I'm super thankful for him. He does make the cyclic vomiting days easier just because it is hard for me to go from the bathroom to the couch to the bathroom to my bed, and I'm not always completely with it. I get really dizzy, so he's able to just kind of stay there, and I don't do full weight bear with him. He's not cleared for OFAs, but it's nice just to have him there to guide. And if I'm dizzy, he can just sit there and let me put a hand on him just to kind of steady me, and he stays completely still. And yeah, so I'm really thankful for him, and he helps a lot with cyclic vomiting, and it's a little bit more on what it is. So I will see you guys next time.